So you talk about people seeking clarity and wanting to find out kind of what's going on. And there does seem to be this, I think, a greater dividing line, my way of looking at it at least. We have reports of a lot of people coming into the church lately. Numbers seem to be growing in certain areas, especially younger people. These are reports that we're hearing. And yet, we're also seeing some very egregious activity on the evil side with regards to greater attacks against dignity the person in various ways. And there's so many different reports. You look at other countries and different things regarding pedophilia, human trafficking, abortion, but also things like a greater effort for this unification between the Red-Green Alliance, the more radical Islamic movement with communism. We've had a speaker recently back in January on John Gondola who spoke a lot about that. He's worked with the FBI. Really recommend people check out that episode of the podcast. He's worked with the FBI and he's worked with the Marine. He's a Marine and has done an enormous amount of work regarding intelligence and what's happening there. And this is an active move. There are people trying to really undermine our country. We know this. This is not hidden anymore. The socialist movement, the mayor of New York City, all these different pieces. And there's confusion. And then the situation with the war in Iran. And then what the left is referring to as a fight or a feud, those are words they use between Pope Leo the 14th and President Trump. And I think personally, a lot of that's overblown. We've always had popes disagree with leaders of countries, emperors, kings, different rulers at different times. It's not necessarily uncommon, but the left, of course, likes to go with the if it bleeds, it leads approach. And we've got to bleed. If it's not bleeding enough, let's make it look like it's bleeding even more. But I love your take on all of these different pieces. I know there's a lot there to discuss, but the people are, I think Catholics are confused. And then there's this division issue, or last thing I'll say here, last point, Father, this division issue between those who want to see something good come from, for example, the war that's going on in Iran right now. They want to see something wholesome come out of this. Wholesome meaning let's end the regime that has been persecuting its people over there for a long time, 47 years. And I know you've got some information for people to understand about where that is really deeply rooted. And it's not just in Islam, is the communism aspect of that. But then also we've got people that are just war tired. We're tired of talk of war and all this discussion, but we're living in a mess in different ways, and it's creating division. If you're on one side or the other, the Pope is bad. No, President Trump is bad. No, wait, maybe this, maybe that. Can I believe in a little bit of this? Can I understand a little bit of this and think that they're both right in different ways? And it's really created a lot of havoc for a lot of people. And again, as Father said, Father Allah, that's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on. You've got a good level head and a clear way of trying to explain this. So there's a lot I just threw at the wall there. You pick it apart and tell us where you want to start.
Well, I think the place we got to start is kind of what Father Richard was saying prior to the show beginning, and that is, how are we going to heal this division? And personally, I think you got to stop the ad hominem attacks. These attacks that are based on the person and not the facts or the context or the content, but just attack the person. Like, in an ad hominem attack, it's not about the issues, it's about the person. And we've turned this level of bickering to a new level in the since social media has taken root. And boy, what gets lost in this is the dignity of the human person. And we go back to the abortion battles, we go back to immigration. What is the core of all of it? The dignity of the human person. And so if we can't treat each other, regardless of what our position is, now, we Marians always say, we don't belong to any particular political party. We belong to the party of Christ. That's who we belong to. So I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, if you support ending abortion and you support marriage between one man and one woman and you support preserving religious liberty, I don't care what party you're from. I That's a candidate that we as Catholics can support.
Yeah.
And so on the flip side, I don't care what they stand for. They're Democrat, they're evil, or they're Republican, they're evil. When I would have to say our ideas align more with one political party than another. But even on the other side of the aisle, you have people like Fetterman, who is, standing up against some of his own party to say, listen, there are some things here that are really wrong within our own ranks. You could say the same thing about the other side of the aisle as well. And so, if we could just get back to the dignity of the human person,
Mm.
and look at, okay, we disagree on this, but what's the truth? We were also talking before the show began that you're never going to end division until all sides look at the truth. That is the only way to bring everybody together, is what is the truth? And how do we know the truth? Go to church teaching, go to the scriptures. This is how we know the truth. And so if we are faithful to the teachings of Christ, given through the scriptures, given through the magisterium, given through sacred apostolic tradition, then there's an easy solution to all of this.
Mm.
Respect the dignity of the human person, then engage in debate. And then within the engagement of debate, you simply highlight what is truth. And if somebody says, I disagree, because, our world, as you know, Doug, is full of cultural relativism.
Mm.
But if you disagree, you just simply go to those three pillars of our faith: scripture, the magisterium, and sacred apostolic tradition. Now, I know many people will say, well, I don't believe in the Catholic Church, so don't use magisterium and sacred apostolic tradition on me. I do realize that. But you know what? Then go to the natural law. Who can argue the natural law? The natural law is such a beautiful gift that it doesn't matter if you're Christian, Jewish, or Islam, Muslim. The natural law is there.
Mm.
Sometimes they're ill-informed and their conscience is malformed, so they don't see the natural law, like thinking that it's good to kill in the name of God. But the bottom line is, if we can somehow find a way, end ad hominem attacks, respect the dignity of the human person, and stand for the truth and let the truth speak for itself, I think you're going to see an end of a lot of that division that doesn't need to exist.